Picture this, I'm standing in my wedding dress, about to walk down the aisle to marry the love of my life, when my phone buzzes with a photo that changes everything. It's my brother Nathan kissing my fiancé Tyler in what looks like a very intimate moment. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part came 3 hours later when a woman I'd never seen before walked into our reception calling herself Tyler's wife. If you've ever trusted the wrong people or discovered that your family isn't who you thought they were, this story will hit different. Before we dive in, hit that like button if you believe in karma, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love connecting with people who understand that sometimes the people closest to you can hurt you the most. My name is Olivia Rose Mitchell, and I'm 29 years old. What happened at what was supposed to be my wedding 3 months ago still makes headlines in our small town's gossip circles. But this isn't just about a wedding that went wrong. This is about discovering that the two men I trusted most in my life had been living lies so elaborate, so calculated, that when the truth finally came out, it destroyed not just them, but 3 other families in the process. Let me take you back to the beginning, to understand how deep this betrayal really went. I met Tyler Richardson 2 years ago at a charity gala in downtown Portland. I was there representing the nonprofit where I work as a program director, and he was there as a successful real estate developer who'd recently moved to town. The attraction was immediate. He was charming, successful, and seemed genuinely interested in the work I was doing with homeless youth. Tyler was everything I thought I wanted. Tall, dark hair that was always perfectly styled, designer suits that fit him like they were made for him, which they probably were. He drove a black BMW, lived in a stunning modern house in the hills, and seemed to have his life completely together at 34. Our courtship was like something out of a romance novel. Dinner dates at the best restaurants, weekend trips to wine country, thoughtful gifts that showed he was really listening to what I cared about. He supported my work, donated generously to our programs, and even volunteered at our weekend events. But what made me fall for Tyler wasn't just the romantic gestures. It was how he fit into my family. My parents loved him immediately. My brother Nathan, who was notoriously picky about my boyfriends, embraced Tyler like a long-lost brother. They became close friends, going to basketball games together, having guys' nights out, even taking a fishing trip to Canada last spring. "I'm so glad you found someone who gets along with Nathan," my mom would say. "It's important that your husband and brother are friends." Nathan, 3 years older than me, had always been protective of my relationships. He'd driven away more than one boyfriend with his intense questioning and barely concealed disapproval. But with Tyler, it was different. They clicked immediately, talking about sports, business, life goals. Nathan even helped Tyler pick out my engagement ring. The proposal happened 8 months ago at Crater Lake, with Nathan secretly hiding in the bushes taking photos for us. Tyler had planned the whole thing, he said, but wanted Nathan there to capture the moment. It felt perfect, the 3 most important people in my life, sharing this incredible milestone. Planning the wedding became a family affair. Nathan helped Tyler with the guest list, coordinated the bachelor party, even went with him to pick out his tuxedo. My parents were thrilled, already talking about grandchildren and family holidays. Tyler fit seamlessly into our tight-knit family dynamic. "You're so lucky," my best friend Megan would say. Not just to find Tyler, but to have a family that loves him. Do you know how rare that is? I thought I did know how rare it was. I felt blessed, grateful, like I'd won some cosmic lottery. Tyler and Nathan's friendship meant everything to me. They'd text each other constantly. Nathan would invite Tyler to things even when I couldn't go, and Tyler would ask Nathan's advice about everything from investment opportunities to anniversary gifts. Looking back now, I can see the signs I missed. How Tyler always seemed to know things about my schedule that I hadn't told him. How he'd sometimes reference conversations Nathan and I had when he wasn't around. how their friendship seemed almost intense. But I was in love, planning a wedding, and building what I thought was going to be our perfect life together. I wasn't looking for red flags. I was looking for confirmation that I'd made the right choice. 3 weeks before the wedding, Tyler started acting strange. He was distracted during our final venue walkthrough, kept checking his phone during our cake tasting, and seemed distant when we were reviewing the final guest list. Pre-wedding jitters, my mom assured me. Men get nervous too, honey. It's normal. Nathan agreed. Tyler is just stressed about the business expansion. He's got a lot on his plate right now. Don't take it personally. But it felt personal. The man who used to hang on my every word was suddenly somewhere else mentally. Our conversations became surface level. He stopped asking about my day, stopped sharing details about his. 2 weeks before the wedding, I found out why. I was at Nathan's apartment, going over the final details for his best man speech, when Tyler called him. Nathan stepped into the kitchen to take the call, but their voices carried. I can't do this anymore, I heard Tyler say. It's eating me alive. You have to, Nathan's voice was urgent, almost pleading. We've come too far to back out now. But Olivia doesn't deserve this. She's a good person. Olivia will be fine. She's strong. She'll understand eventually. I stood frozen in Nathan's living room, my blood turning to ice. What wouldn't I understand? What was eating Tyler alive? When Nathan came back, I pretended I hadn't heard anything. But that conversation haunted me for the next 2 weeks. I tried to convince myself it was about business, about the stress of combining our lives, about normal pre-wedding anxiety. I was wrong. The morning of the wedding, I woke up in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by my bridesmaids getting ready. Megan was curling my hair while my sister-in-law Ashley did my makeup. The atmosphere was festive, excited, everything a bride could want. My dress was a dream, vintage lace with a cathedral train that had belonged to my grandmother. I'd lost 15 pounds for this day, worked out with a trainer, had professional hair and makeup trials. I looked exactly how I'd always imagined I'd look on my wedding day. You're glowing, Ashley said, applying the final touches of lipstick. Tyler is going to lose his mind when he sees you. The ceremony was set for 4 p.m. at the historic Pittock Mansion, with 150 guests expected. We'd spent months planning every detail, the flower arrangements, the music, the reception menu. My parents had insisted on paying for everything, calling it their gift to their baby girl. At 2 p.m., I was in my dress, waiting for the photographer to finish the bride-alone portraits, when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You need to see this before you walk down that aisle. Attached was a photo that made my world stop spinning. It was Tyler and Nathan, but not in the way I expected. They were kissing. Not a friendly kiss, not a congratulatory peck. A deep, passionate, intimate kiss that spoke of familiarity and love. They were in what looked like Nathan's apartment, both shirtless, Tyler's hands tangled in Nathan's hair. My hand started shaking so violently I almost dropped the phone. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of cruel joke, someone trying to sabotage my wedding. But as I stared at the photo, details jumped out at me. The scar on Tyler's shoulder from a skiing accident. The specific way Nathan held his head when he kissed someone, I'd seen him do it with his ex-girlfriend years ago. The framed photo on Nathan's nightstand in the background, one I'd given him for his birthday. This was real. This was recent. And this meant everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. Another text came through, there's more. Meet me in the rose garden behind the mansion. Come alone. Megan's friend Claire. I barely knew her, but she was Megan's +1. Why would she have photos of Tyler and Nathan? I looked at myself in the mirror, perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect dress for a perfect wedding that was about to become a perfect nightmare. 20 minutes before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, I slipped out of the bridal suite and made my way to the rose garden. Claire was waiting by the fountain, her face grim and apologetic. "I'm so sorry, Olivia," she said immediately. "I didn't want to do this today, but I couldn't let you marry him without knowing." "How do you have photos of my brother and my fiancé?" I asked, though part of me wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. Claire took a deep breath. "Because I'm a private investigator. And because Tyler is already married." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "His name isn't Tyler Richardson. It's Tyler Brooks. And he's been married to a woman named Rebecca Brooks for 6 years. They live in Seattle. She hired me 2 months ago because she suspected he was having an affair." Claire handed me a tablet with a full investigative report. Photos of Tyler, my Tyler, with a blonde woman and 2 young children. Wedding photos from 6 years ago. Property records showing a house in Seattle under both their names. Bank records showing joint accounts. Rebecca noticed charges in Portland, Claire continued. Restaurant bills, hotel stays, jewelry purchases. She thought he was having an affair with a woman. She never suspected it was a man. I stared at the photos, my vision blurring. The children? Ages 4 and 2. Lily and Max Tyler, or Thomas, as Rebecca calls him, travels for work. Real estate development, just like he told you. But his home base is Seattle, not Portland. This doesn't make sense, I said, though the evidence was right in front of me. He lives here. I've been to his house. Rental property. Paid for monthly through his business account. Olivia, he's been living a double life. Wife and kids in Seattle, boyfriend and fake fiancé in Portland. Boyfriend. Nathan. My brother was Tyler's boyfriend. How long? I whispered. Based on phone records and credit card statements, at least 18 months. The relationship with Nathan started about 6 months before he met you. 18 months. Tyler had been with my brother for 6 months before he even asked me out. Their instant connection, their intense friendship, Nathan's immediate approval, it all made horrible sense now. There's more, Claire said gently. Rebecca is here. In Portland. She flew down this morning when I told her about the wedding. She's waiting at the hotel across the street. I looked toward the mansion where 150 people were waiting for me to walk down the aisle and marry a man who was already married to someone else, who was having an affair with my brother, who had turned my entire life into an elaborate lie. The photographer would be looking for me soon. The string quartet would be starting the processional music. My father would be putting on his jacket, ready to walk me down the aisle. But I couldn't marry Tyler. I couldn't pretend I didn't know what I now knew. I need to see her, I said finally. I need to see Rebecca. Claire nodded. She's in room 312 at the Embassy Suites. Olivia, I'm sorry. I know this is the worst possible timing, but, no, I interrupted. This is exactly the right timing. Better to know now than after I legally bind myself to a fraud. I walked back toward the mansion, my cathedral train dragging behind me on the garden path. In 30 minutes, I was supposed to promise to love, honor, and cherish a man who had been lying to me since the day we met. Instead, I was going to destroy him. But first, I needed to talk to Rebecca. The walk to the Embassy Suites in my wedding dress drew stares, but I didn't care. Hotel staff offered to help, assuming I was a bride in distress, but I just smiled and kept walking. Room 312. I knocked softly. The woman who opened the door was exactly what I'd expect Tyler to marry legitimately. blonde, petite, conventionally beautiful in a wholesome way. She was holding a toddler, Max, I assumed, while a little girl peeked out from behind her legs. "You must be Olivia," Rebecca said, her voice kind but strained. "I'm Rebecca. And these are my children with Tyler." Looking at those kids, who had Tyler's eyes, Tyler's smile, made everything real in a way the photos hadn't. He wasn't just lying to me and Nathan. He was lying to an entire family. "Mommy, is Daddy coming home soon?" the little girl asked, looking up at me with curious eyes. Rebecca's face crumpled. "I don't know, sweetheart. Why don't you go watch cartoons?" When the children were settled in front of the TV, Rebecca and I sat at the small hotel table, two women who'd been betrayed by the same man. "How much do you know?" she asked. "I found out about you 20 minutes ago," I said. "But I also found out he's been having an affair with my brother." Rebecca's eyes widened. "Your brother? The best man?" "Nathan. They've been together for at least 18 months. Rebecca stared at me, processing this information. "He told me he was straight. When we met in college, when we got married, when we had the kids. He said he'd never been attracted to men. He told me he loved me," I said. "That I was the love of his life. That he couldn't wait to start a family with me." We sat in silence for a moment, two women trying to comprehend the scope of one man's deception. "What do you want to do?" Rebecca asked finally. I thought about Tyler, probably checking his watch in the groom's suite, maybe getting nervous about the ceremony. I thought about Nathan, who should be helping calm those nerves, not knowing that his secret was about to explode. I thought about 150 guests who had traveled to celebrate a love story that was entirely fiction. "I want them to face the consequences of what they've done," I said. "Both of them." Rebecca nodded slowly. "What do you need from me?" 20 minutes later, I walked back into the Poetic mansion with Rebecca and her children beside me. The ceremony was scheduled to start in 10 minutes. Guests were seated, the string quartet was playing, and the wedding party was lined up and ready. I found my father in the hallway outside the bridal suite. "Olivia, there you are," he said, relief clear in his voice. We were starting to worry. Are you okay?" "Dad, I need you to trust me. In about 5 minutes, I'm going to walk into that ceremony, but not to get married. I need you to stay calm, no matter what happens." My father's face went pale. "Olivia, what's wrong?" "Tyler is already married." "To her." I gestured to Rebecca, who was standing a few feet away with her children. "And he's been having an affair with Nathan." Dad stared at Rebecca and the kids, his face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and slowly dawning fury. "Those are Tyler's children?" he asked quietly. "Lily and Max," Rebecca said, stepping forward. "I'm Rebecca Brooks. Tyler's wife of 6 years." My father, a man I'd rarely seen lose his temper, looked like he was about to explode. "Dad," I said firmly, "I need you to trust my plan." "Can you do that?" He nodded, though his hands were clenched into fists. I walked to the entrance of the ceremony space, where 150 people were waiting for the bride to appear. The string quartet saw me and began the processional music. But instead of walking down the aisle, I stepped to the front of the assembled guests and raised my hand. The music stopped. "Thank you all so much for coming today to celebrate what we thought was going to be the union of Tyler and myself," I began, my voice carrying clearly through the space. "However, I've just learned some information that changes everything." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I saw my mother in the front row, her face confused and concerned. I saw Tyler and Nathan at the altar, both looking confused about why the ceremony wasn't proceeding as planned. "Tyler," I called out, "could you please come here?" He walked toward me, his face a mask of confusion and growing concern. Nathan followed behind him. "I have someone I'd like you to meet," I said as Tyler reached me. "This is Rebecca Brooks." Tyler went completely white. His eyes darted to Rebecca, then to the children, then back to me. I watched the exact moment he realized his carefully constructed lies were crumbling. "Rebecca is Tyler's wife," I announced to the stunned crowd. "They've been married for 6 years. Lily and Max are their children." The silence that followed was deafening. Then the whispers started, growing louder as people processed what I'd just revealed. "That's impossible," my mother said, standing up. "Tyler isn't married." "Actually, he is," I said, gesturing to Rebecca. "Would you like to tell everyone about your husband, Rebecca?" Rebecca stepped forward, her voice shaking but clear. "Tyler and I were married 6 years ago in Seattle. We have 2 children together. Until this morning, I had no idea he was engaged to someone else." The crowd erupted. People were standing, talking over each other, trying to understand what was happening. I saw several guests pulling out their phones, probably to film or livestream this disaster. But I wasn't done. "There's more," I said, and the crowd quieted again. "Tyler hasn't just been lying to me about being married. He's been having an affair with my brother Nathan." Every eye in the room turned to Nathan, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "Nathan and Tyler have been in a relationship for over 18 months, I continued. While Tyler was married to Rebecca in Seattle, and while he was engaged to me here in Portland." My mother made a sound like she'd been punched. My father was staring at Nathan with an expression I'd never seen before, disgust mixed with heartbreak. "So today, instead of a wedding, we're having a revelation," I said. "Tyler Brooks is a fraud who has been living 3 separate lives. Rebecca deserves to know what kind of man she married. I deserve to know what kind of man I almost married. And all of you deserve to know that the love story you came here to celebrate was built on lies." Tyler finally found his voice. "Olivia, let me explain." "Explain what?" I cut him off. "Explain how you've been married for 6 years while proposing to other women? Explain how you've been sleeping with my brother while telling me you loved me? Explain how you've been lying to everyone in this room?" "It's complicated," he said weakly. "No," I said firmly. "It's simple. You're a liar. You're a cheater. And you're a fraud." I turned to Nathan, who hadn't said a word through this entire revelation. "And you," I said, my voice breaking slightly for the first time. "You're my brother. You were supposed to protect me, not help someone destroy me." Nathan's eyes filled with tears. "Olivia, I never meant for this to happen." "But it did happen," I said. "You chose to have an affair with my fiancé. You chose to help him lie to me. You chose to stand up there as his best man, knowing he was already married to someone else." I turned back to the crowd, many of whom were still filming. "I'm sorry you all traveled here for a wedding that was never going to happen," I said. "The reception is still paid for, so please stay and eat if you'd like. But there won't be a ceremony, because I won't marry a man who is already married to someone else." With that, I walked out of the ceremony space, leaving Tyler, Nathan, and 150 stunned guests behind me. But I wasn't done with my revenge. That was just the beginning. Over the next 3 hours, while our guests processed what had happened and most eventually left, I worked with Rebecca to piece together the full scope of Tyler's deception. His real estate business was legitimate, but he'd been using it to finance his double life. The house in Portland, the expensive dates, the engagement ring, all paid for with money that should have been going to support his actual family. Rebecca had been struggling financially, working 2 part-time jobs while taking care of the kids, believing Tyler's stories about business being slow and money being tight. Meanwhile, he was spending thousands of dollars a month maintaining his Portland lifestyle. But the financial deception was just the beginning. Using Rebecca's laptop, we dug deeper into Tyler's digital life. What we found was devastating. Tyler had been documenting his relationship with Nathan. Photos, videos, text conversations that revealed not just the physical affair, but an emotional relationship that went far deeper than I'd realized. In text messages, Tyler called Nathan the love of his life. He talked about leaving both Rebecca and me to be with Nathan openly. He discussed plans for them to move away together, to start fresh somewhere new. Nathan, for his part, was equally invested. His messages talked about being tired of hiding, about wanting to tell me the truth, about feeling guilty for hurting me but not guilty enough to stop. The most damaging messages were from just 2 weeks ago, right around the time Tyler started acting strange. "I can't marry Olivia," Tyler had texted. "It feels like I'm betraying you." "Then don't," Nathan had replied. "Tell her the truth. We can be together for real." "But the money. Rebecca needs the insurance for my job. The kids need stability. So keep Rebecca as your wife for the benefits and be with me for real. Olivia will understand eventually." "You really think she'd be okay with that?" "Olivia's strong. She'll find someone else. Someone who can actually love her the way she deserves." Reading those messages felt like being stabbed repeatedly. They'd been planning to use me as a cover for their relationship while maintaining Tyler's marriage for financial convenience. I was going to be the understanding ex-fiancé who stepped aside so my brother could be happy with my former fiancé. But there was more. Screenshots of dating app profiles where Tyler was active, looking for other men in both Seattle and Portland. Hotel receipts for encounters with people who weren't Nathan or me. Tyler wasn't just living a double life, he was living multiple lives. Rebecca was horrified. I'd been tested for STDs, but only because of routine checkups. I had no idea he was seeing other people. By 7 p.m., the reception space was empty except for Rebecca, her kids, and me. The catering staff had packed up the untouched wedding cake and most of the food. The flowers were wilting in their arrangements. The DJ had long since packed up his equipment. I was still in my wedding dress, though I'd taken off the veil and train. Rebecca was holding Max, who had fallen asleep, while Lily colored in a book someone had found for her. "What happens now?" Rebecca asked. I looked around the empty reception space, at the remnants of what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. "Now we make sure everyone knows exactly who Tyler Brooks really is," I said. I started with social media. The wedding hashtag I'd created, #OliviaandTylerForever, was already trending locally, but not for the reasons I'd intended. Guests had posted photos and videos of the ceremony disaster, and the story was spreading. But I wanted to control the narrative. I created a detailed Facebook post with Rebecca's permission, including photos of Tyler's marriage certificate, pictures of him with his children, and screenshots of some of the less explicit messages between him and Nathan. I tagged every mutual friend and family member I could think of. Today I learned that my fiancé Tyler Richardson is actually Tyler Brooks, married father of 2 from Seattle, who has been having an affair with my brother Nathan for over 18 months. I'm sharing this not for sympathy, but so that other women know who they're dealing with if he tries this again. The post was shared 200 times within the first hour. But social media was just the beginning. Rebecca had already consulted with a divorce attorney who specialized in cases involving hidden assets and financial fraud. Tyler's use of marital funds to finance his Portland lifestyle was grounds for a particularly aggressive approach to the divorce settlement. I called my friend Hannah, who works for the local newspaper, and gave her an exclusive interview about the wedding that never was. The story ran 3 days later with the headline "Local Developer's Secret Life Exposed at Portland Wedding." But the most satisfying revenge came from an unexpected source. 2 days after the wedding disaster, I got a call from a woman named Jennifer. "Hi, is this Olivia Mitchell? I saw your story in the newspaper, and I think I'm dating your ex-fiancé." Jennifer had met Tyler on a dating app 3 months ago. He'd told her his name was Tom Richardson, that he was recently divorced with no kids, and that he was new to Portland. They'd been on 6 dates, and he'd been pressuring her to move in with him. Within a week, I'd heard from 4 other women. All had similar stories, Tyler approaching them on dating apps with slightly different names and background stories, all while he was engaged to me and married to Rebecca. The local LGBTQ+ community was equally outraged when word spread about how Tyler had used his relationship with Nathan. Several people came forward with stories of Tyler hitting on them at gay bars in both Portland and Seattle, always claiming to be single. But the consequences that meant the most to me were the ones that hit closest to home. My parents, who had spent $40,000 on the wedding, demanded that Tyler reimburse them. When he refused, my father sued him in small claims court. The case made local news, adding another layer to Tyler's public humiliation. Nathan, my brother who I'd trusted and loved my entire life, became a pariah in our family. My parents didn't speak to him for 2 months. Extended family took sides, and most sided with me. The family business, where Nathan worked, became uncomfortable for him as word spread among employees and clients. Tyler's real estate business suffered as well. Word spread quickly in Portland's tight-knit professional community. Clients who had worked with him came forward with stories of unprofessional behavior, missed appointments, and suspicious financial practices. His licensing board opened an investigation. But perhaps the most poetic justice came 6 months later. Rebecca's divorce was finalized with a settlement that gave her full custody of the children, the house in Seattle, and 70% of Tyler's assets. The judge was particularly unsympathetic to Tyler's claims of financial hardship, given the evidence of his expensive double life. Nathan, meanwhile, found himself alone. Tyler, faced with the collapse of his carefully constructed lies, didn't want to continue their relationship. The fantasy of running away together disappeared when reality set in. Nathan had lost his family's trust, his romantic relationship, and much of his social standing in the community. As for me, the woman who was supposed to be crushed by this betrayal, I thrived. The story of my wedding day revelation got picked up by national media. I was invited to speak on podcasts and blogs about trusting your instincts and standing up for yourself. The nonprofit where I work saw a surge in donations from people who had heard my story and wanted to support my work. But more importantly, I learned something valuable about myself. I learned that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. When faced with a choice between accepting a lie and demanding the truth, I chose truth. When faced with a choice between protecting other people's feelings and protecting my own dignity, I chose dignity. The wedding dress that I never got to wear properly has been donated to a program that provides formal wear to women re-entering the workforce. I kept the photos from that day, not the professional wedding photos that were never taken, but the photos Claire the private investigator took of the revelation. They remind me of the day I chose myself over the comfortable lie. Tyler tried to contact me several times in the months following the wedding disaster. He sent flowers, letters, long emails explaining his confusion and complicated feelings. I never responded to any of them. Nathan took longer to give up. He showed up at my apartment, called repeatedly, sent text messages begging for forgiveness. It took almost a year, but eventually he stopped trying. I did speak to him once, about 8 months after the wedding. He looked terrible, like he hadn't been sleeping or eating well. He'd lost weight, aged years and months. "I know you hate me," he said when I agreed to meet him for coffee. and I know I deserve it. But Olivia, I need you to know that I never meant for it to go that far. What did you mean for it to be? I asked. I don't know, he said, and I could see that he really didn't. I was confused about my sexuality, and Tyler was. He made me feel things I'd never felt before. But I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me, I said. You helped someone else hurt me. You stood there and watched me plan a wedding to a married man, and you said nothing. I was going to tell you, he said. That phone call you overheard at my apartment, I was trying to convince Tyler to come clean. No, I said firmly. You were trying to convince him not to back out. I heard what I heard, Nathan. He started crying then, something I'd rarely seen from my big brother. I lost everything, he said. My family, my girlfriend, my job, Tyler. I lost everything. You didn't lose it, I corrected. You threw it away. You chose to have an affair with my fiancé. You chose to lie to me for months. You chose to stand up there as his best man knowing he was already married. Those were your choices. Can you ever forgive me? He asked. I looked at my brother, the person who had protected me from bullies as a child, who had taught me to drive, who had been my best friend for most of my life, and I felt nothing but sadness. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe someday. But not now. And maybe not ever. That was the last time we spoke. A year later, I'm in a very different place. I'm single by choice, focused on my career and my own growth. I've been to therapy to work through the trust issues that come with discovering that the two most important men in your life were living lies. I've learned to recognize red flags I missed before. I've learned to trust my instincts when something feels wrong. I've learned that sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones capable of hurting you the deepest. But I've also learned that I'm resilient in ways I never knew. I survived having my entire life exposed as a lie in front of 150 people. I survived the humiliation, the heartbreak, and the betrayal. I came out stronger. The wedding that never happened taught me something valuable. It's better to face an ugly truth than to live a beautiful lie. Rebecca and I stay in touch. Her children are thriving in their new stable environment. She's back in school, working toward a nursing degree. She's dating someone new, a man who knows her whole story and loves her anyway. Tyler, last I heard, was working for a real estate company in another state. His professional reputation in Portland never recovered. His personal life remains a mystery, and I prefer it that way. As for the wedding that never was, I sometimes think about how different my life would be if Claire hadn't sent me that text message. If I had walked down that aisle, said those vows, and married a man who was already married, I would have become an unwitting accomplice to his fraud. I would have spent my married life wondering why my husband seemed distant, why he traveled so much, why something always felt off. I might have blamed myself for problems that were never mine to solve. Instead, I became the woman who stood up in front of 150 people and refused to accept a lie, no matter how embarrassing the truth was. That woman, the one in the wedding dress who chose truth over comfort, who chose dignity over family harmony, who chose herself over everyone else's expectations, that's who I really am. And I'm proud of her. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. That wedding disaster saved me from a lifetime of lies. It showed me who I really was when everything was on the line. If you believe in choosing truth over comfort, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself when it matters most. Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting yourself? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear how you handled it. Remember, you deserve honesty, even when the truth is painful.